Hello and welcome to this episode of Fellowship in Essential Oils. This week, we're going to dive into basil, Liz.
Sweet basil. Let's be
Yes.
really succinct about that, because if you go onto the internet, people will talk about holy basil and sweet basil as if they're the same herb, and they're very much not. So I'll try not to get onto my soapbox too much. But next we'll talk about holy basil, but it's almost impossible not to talk about the two in tandem because they're so different. So it's really interesting to compare. So yeah, Sweet Basil. I wrote about it. I don't know when I wrote about it. Maybe 2016, when somebody asked me to do a blog post, and I came across this thing of, well, why are people talking about the two herbs together? And I thought, right, I'm going to extricate them. So I had a great time. When people say to me, "What's your favourite book?" I think everybody expects me to go, "Oh, I loved writing Rose," and I did. But this was my absolute favourite book to write.
And was that because of the information that you're kind of uncovering as you're researching it, or what
Because
made
of
it so
the
great?
information, but also the energy of the plant. I learned so much about myself, because that's the whole point of doing that kind of work. You reveal the information to yourself, but also from a spiritual point of view, you're like, well, what part of my brain, what part of my psyche does this interact with? And it's very much a shadow oil. It goes to places that are dark, and I really enjoyed the me that it created.
Yes, it is interesting when it's known as sweet basil. Obviously, that's to do a bit more with its flavoring, but I don't. Well, we'll unpick that as we go through this discussion. But is it really a sweet oil? I would say probably not.
No,
It's
it's the opposite. And if you look at, I mean, I really don't even know why it's called sweet, because it doesn't taste sweet. It's a herb we eat, isn't it? It's the main kind of herb that we eat. But I always say to people, if you want to understand the energy of basil, it's worth just going to the supermarket and putting a pot of live basil in from the supermarket into the back of your car, and you will not be able to smell the fresh bread. You won't be able to smell the tomatoes or any of those things. It's like she
all
punches you
consuming.
in the face. Absolutely, so pervasive. And that is the energy that you come into contact with.
Yeah. Now, where I find basil has been a savior for me, and where I've worked with it, and I know that a lot of people do, is for exhaustion. Really good for exhaustion. I love it just topically, where I'll pop it on the soles of my feet when I'm going to bed, but also mixing it with obviously a carrier oil, and then just rubbing it on that lower back over the adrenals as well. And I think in a world where a lot of people are overstretched, overwhelmed, and overworked, this is a really nice oil to just kind of help to get everything functioning, back to how it should be. Not, we obviously have to make those lifestyle changes as well. It's not a magic formula, but I think it really supports in that when we are in these periods of overwhelm and lots to do, possibly a holiday season or something like that.
Yes, I think that's absolutely right. I can tell you exactly what the herb says to me. She goes, and it is a she, and we'll talk about that afterwards. She goes, get out of your head. Just get out of your head. Just do it. So one of the interesting things was, like, what you and I often we're similar, that we talk about how, like, we personify the personification of a herb, but I could see her very clearly, and she manifested like a sergeant in serving in Afghanistan, and she got a team of lads underneath her, and she was scary, but she was really good fun. But she was very, like, imagine going, you got to do the big jump off the sides of things or out the side of the plane. She'd be like, nope, get out. And
Yeah.
that is exactly how she works with me, especially if I'm, like, worried about a lot of things, or I suffer from imposter syndrome a lot. So the time before I release my books can be very stressful for me, because I'm just like going over and over. I don't know if it's good enough, and I'm editing to the point that I'm like, you can't move that sentence, that full stop again. You've got to stop. And she's very good at going, just when you press the button, please. And that is, and as you say, with Exhaustion, that's very good, because in the end it just goes, you need to stop now, just enough.
Yeah. Well, very much I find with exhaustion, it's often because we're trying to be everything to everyone.
Yes.
And this is a really good way in that mental. And one of my favorite expressions about Basil that I don't know if it was the Greeks or the Romans or something, that said that Basil helps to put a scorpion in the mind. And
actually there's so many associations with scorpions. So and the reason for that apparently is, so they wrote about this in medieval times a lot, that if you've got basil in the compost heap, then scorpions will come and nest there. And there's loads of stories about how there were no scorpions, but suddenly scorpions came everywhere from the basil, and they were absolutely determined in medieval times that it was the basil that brought the scorpion.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. And I find, when we think about that energy or the teaching of the scorpion, a scorpion has, like the zodiac sign of Scorpio, very disciplined, very passionate, has that sting. There is a sensuality almost about a scorpion in that power that it has that potential of power. It doesn't always necessarily sting you in that way. And I think, Basil also, if I'd pair it with a scorpion, I'd also pair it with lightning. It kind of has an energy of lightning. When lightning comes down to the earth, it's not like, oh, where shall I strike today? It's like, bang! It knows exactly what it's going to do. So when we find, like you said, if we're in our head, we kind of, a lot of our exhaustion, I think, is not real exhaustion, or it's not based on real reality, but that overthinking. That often it's not Christmas that's overwhelming, or it's not work that's overwhelming. It's the mental chaos that goes with it that actually drains us. And when we think about, I like to look at each of the oils that are gifted from leaves. They're to do with the air element. And I kind of like to categorize them into two groups. So the first group is your big tree leaf oil. So that's your things like your conifers, your spruces, your firs, your pines, and so on. That's your eucalyptuses. They're very expansive. They help to open the mind. Whereas I find with your small plant leaf oils, so that's your herbs like your rosemary, your oregano, your thyme, your peppermint, your lemongrass, and your basil, they help in different ways to focus the mind. So basil does, like the power of lightning and that scorpion, refine the mind to go, what do I need to focus on? What's really, really important? And how can I let that extraneous clutter disappear and not stress me out, not worry about that final full stop and where it should actually go? And as we do that, we can start to replenish the body.
Yeah, I love that. Actually, we're kind of doing this back to front, aren't we? We'll talk about the physical in a minute, but I'd love to read you a little bit about the triple goddess that Voodoo says is Basil, if that's all right with you. So I'm going to have to put them on computer, so bear with me. So I will look odd because I'll be staring at the computer screen. So it says, in Voodoo medicine, Basil is favoured by Azili, a Voodoo loa or goddess. She stands for love, beauty and passion. She is a triple goddess. Originally, the goddess Oshun, the Reuben River goddess of West Africa, Azili, emerged when her people were captured and taken into slavery in the Americas by white men. Since worship of pagan idols became outlawed in the Roman Catholic New World, often gods and goddesses took on new spaces of saints so they might still be secretly worshipped. Her parts are Azuli Freda, Azuli Dantor, and La Sirene. So, triple goddess. Often we will see her in Christian art under different names. So Azuli Freda is exquisitely beautiful and is seen with white skin, blonde flowing hair and dancing green eyes. She loves the finer things in life, passion, sexual power and beauty. She's aligned with the Virgin Mary and Aphrodite and Venus. Her favourite colour is pink, and she adores lavish things. Azuli Freda knows how to turn on the feminine charm, adorning her white robes with silver, and she uses it to her full potential. Often thought to be lazy by some voodoo practitioners, she's rarely called upon. Work bores her, and she would rather be painting her fingernails. Azuli Frida doesn't really like women. Instead, she waves at them with her pinky finger, but she greets men with a hug. And it said if someone is possessed by Azuli Frida, they become flirtatious and seductive. She has 3 husbands: Dambala, the Sky Father; Ogun, the god of war and iron; and Agwe, ruler of the sea. To show this, she wears 3 wedding rings. Despite these 3 husbands, she is still thought to be a virgin. Azuli Frida has no time for deep involvements. She is an ardent lover, but a fickle one. She loves many men at a time and is the lover of gay and transgender men. Capricious and charismatic, Azula Frida has enticed many men. Her admirers have told her many things, and she is the holder of a great many secrets. This has caused her problems because Azuli Frida aims to please every man, and so, fearing she might give up secrets when she is captured, her people cut out her tongue. Now, the only sound she can make are the sound of her tongue clicking on the top of her mouth. Also known as Azuli Gay Rouge, red eyes, she cries for lost loves and things that have hurt her, and is said to always leave any service held for her crying. This is, some say, because her heart can never be satisfied. We can see this in the symbol, the Vev, a heart struck through by a dagger. She never cries for long, though. She feels the hard side of love, the sickness, hatred, and rage, but she is clever. She cries out in her pain rather than keeping it inside and making herself ill. Azuli Frida is often misunderstood as being selfish and vapid, but in truth, she cries so we don't have to. She takes it on our pain. It's her heart pierced through by a dagger, so ours can remain whole. She's probably the most loved of all the lower. In the past, Haitian people would ask the Virgin Mary to call on Azuli Frida. Now, in their time of emancipation, she will come to them at their own volition. So then the next part of the goddess is perhaps even more interesting. So Azuli Dantor is the warrior goddess. She is driven by passion and jealousy. In contrast to Azuli Frida, Azuli Dantor loves women and will stay with them right through their lives. She seeks terrible vengeance on those people who hurt women. She's said to have 2 husbands and to adore knives. She's the goddess of lesbians, and she is feared for her ruthlessness. Pictorially, we see her depicted with deep scars on her face as testament to the battles she has fought. Azuli Dantor is the petro aspect of Azuli. These are the newer, darker aspects that rose from the goddess in the times of the Haitian slavery. Women would call out to her when their husbands beat them and slave owners overpowered and raped them. Often we might see Azuli Dantor depicted as a Black Madonna, and she is the goddess of motherhood, and in particular single motherhood. Sometimes you might see her depicted as Our Lady of Lourdes or Our Lady of Mount Carmel. Lastly, she is the beautiful La Sirène. So La Sirène is a sea serpent and goddess of the sea. Sacred and sensuous Sirène dances in the rivers, lakes and oceans, but her dance is the banda, lascivious and bawdy. It is beautiful, terrifying, and she dances it with skill and charm. The matron saint of sailors, she drinks rum laced with hot pepper sauce and screams obscenities at anyone who gets in her way. She is Maman Brigitte, a descendant of the Celtic Bridget, and she is called to raise the dead. La Sirène is protector and guidance to those on the point of death and about to transition from this world. To me, here, encapsulated in the triple goddess, we find the first truth about Basil. She is no one simple thing, and every aspect of her is dangerous and terrifying.
Wow.
I
must admit.
know. See, it's really fascinating, isn't it? So
Yeah.
give me comments if you have them, and then I'll tell you a story based on that.
Oh, basically, what I found interesting is, you do see with a lot of mythology, kind of, archetypes will repeat themselves everywhere type of thing. So like Loki is to Hermes and Mercury as to Thoth in that kind of, playful healing, that type of, so you see these archetypes, whereas some of the traits and how they were personified were very, very different to a lot of what, in the traditions that I'm better versed in.
Yes.
Um, you
Yeah.
know,
It's very dark,
these
isn't
felt
it?
like new characters. Do you know what I mean? Or
Yeah,
new
yeah, yeah.
archetypes.
Interesting characters. And so there's Basil started to talk to me after I'd made a phone call to pay a bill. And the lady on the end of the phone really was coughing terribly. And she'd said what her name was. And I said, and I said her name. I said, that's a horrible cough. Are you okay? And she said, I've had it for 3 years. And I
Wow.
said, oh, gosh, that's awful. I said, well, as you know, I have bad lungs. I said, I don't know if it's useful. I said, I write books about essential oils. I've written a book about bronchitis. It does sound like bronchitis. Might be worth getting it. She said, I will. Anyway, I thought nothing of it, forgot about it. Anyway, about 3 weeks later, I got a phone call, and it was this lady from the call centre said, I've read your book and I want you to take me as a patient because I think you're right. I think that maybe there's an emotional component behind this cough. And she'd been to many, many specialists, many, many doctors, not getting anywhere. Anyway, she sat and talked, and she's a lovely lady and she really can talk. So it was a great situation for me because I could just sit there and listen. And she felt very strongly that maybe it was something to do with the situation with a relative in her family and her feelings about it that was the problem. Anyway, I said, well, I dowsed and I said, well, I think we should try some basil. Anyway, so gave her this basil. Met her with her for an appointment the week after, and she said, it's really, really interesting. She said, I will say that she's not a cleaner. I'm not a cleaner. She's not a cleaner. And she said, I have just been cleaning and cleaning and cleaning. I was like, that's interesting because she doesn't clean. I know she doesn't. It's always the first thing that she tells me that she doesn't like housekeeping. And I thought, you know what? I don't think that this is about this relative. I think this is about her living situation. So there had been a situation in her life where she'd had to give up a house that she liked, and she had to take a house that she didn't like, but she didn't want to say anything to her partner about it because she felt she didn't want to upset him. Yeah. Anyway, so she's cleaning and she's using this basil, and basil, I should say, is antitussive. That means it stops you coughing, especially if you've got that kind of cough. Stops it doing it. She said, it's really getting better. It's really getting better. She said, it was really interesting. She said, we're thinking of putting a house on the market. And I was like, interesting. And she'd had the conversation about what she felt about this house, and the house sold very quickly, and she moved house and the cough went. And it was really interesting how I really felt like Azili Frida was there. She's very lazy. She likes things beautiful. And what was really interesting was I was working with her and I was cleaning my house too. And I became very interested in, my beauty, I need to get my face nice now. And how things looked became very, very interesting. But these secrets that she felt she couldn't talk came flooding out. And with them, so did the cough. The cough went. That was the end of the cough. I thought, wow. Very, very interesting that this secret she can't speak. It's like the sound of that they say that she makes. Off it goes.
Wow. Amazing.
Very amazing.
Yeah.
Very amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to just kind of make a little comment kind of off on a tangent on that. There is more and more understanding as the years go on about the interplay between the emotional and the mental and the physical, and how, in this case, maybe, a bit of each was at play. Do you think we've also got to be careful, though, not to swing too much into the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual, and sometimes neglect the physical?
No.
No, okay.
No,
You reckon?
I the body speaks the mind.
Yeah. Okay.
That's a book by a lady called Deb Shapiro, and to me, that is the mantra of life. That
Mm.
that I mean, I can quite happily sometimes use two sets of oils, or sometimes or all together. But emotions are what drives physicality. Science is only catching up with that now, but the ancients knew that. When
Yeah.
Descartes said, "I think, therefore I am," they completely split that off, and then science became absolutely physically focused on symptoms, but
Yeah.
often the symptoms are to do with the mind.
The emotion. Awesome. No, beautiful. Thank you for that. So I didn't realize how great basil was for stopping coughing, which is another attribute.
The best
Yeah.
book stopping coughing,
Yeah.
and it's not like the hacking cough that's like full of catarrh and that's the word, isn't it? When you got congestion on your chest, usually eucalyptus is your hiccups and stuff like that. But actually, that irritating cough that started when COVID started, everybody is like, got that clearing your throat.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And so I would say use basil and also drink warm apple juice. The best thing for coughs.
And in that case, because that is a kind of a throaty thing, is that a topical application, an inhalation? How are you using the basil?
Topical, yeah. I use topical with
with
with sweet basil, and it has lots of different chemotypes. We talk about chemotypes a lot, how the chemistry can change depending on where it's grown and stuff. And for me, I always use Basil CT Linalool, so a high Linalool level, but there is a lot of linalool in there anyway, and for that reason it's antidepressant, and also incredibly good for pain, in particularly neurological pain. So the nerves and the nervous system, and then funnily enough, nervous system, nerves and mental faculties all come back together again. And this is what you get with basil all the time. It always comes back to, and what's the thoughts doing to the body?
Yeah. Any other kind of physical thing while we're kind of touching on the physical that you'd kind of, so we've got pain, we've got coughs, we've got fatigue.
Yeah, so all of those things that you would expect, like rheumatism, arthritis, for those kind of pains, because it's a herb, digestive, of course.
Yeah.
But also it's quite astringent. So if you've got very dirty skin, doing a steam with it is fabulous. You only need one drop. It's so strong. But doing a steam with it, or you could put it into cleansers and things like that. It's lovely. Yeah. I use basil ever such a lot.
We've had a lot of success.
Sorry, I should have said as well, headaches.
Talking about around the head area, we've had a lot of success using basil for earaches. Now, I should emphasize, no one should be putting oils down their ear canal, so don't be doing that. But again, topically applied, they're diluted. People have found that really helpful, and even kind of massaging it down the neck as well. They've found some real relief in that way.
Yes, and also a warm compress. So like a warm, do you say flannel in Australia, or face cloth?
Flannel, yep.
Soak it into warm water, squeeze it out, one drop on there, and just rest it on. Oh, it's very comforting. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful as well. Now, one of the interesting things about it is its Latin name is Olicicum. I had it before we started. Basilicum is the last part of it.
Ocimum basilicum.
Basilicum. That's right.
Of the basilisk and of the king.
Yeah, so that it has that reference to that noble or that royal, and I really love, as we've kind of talked about, how it's an empowering essential oil. It focuses the mind on what's important, and I feel this is one of the oils that helps you to get back on the throne of your life. How many people's lives are out of control? And I often ask people, are you in control of your life, or is life controlling you? And we meet plenty of people, and maybe we can all relate to this at different times in our life, where we feel like we are being pulled around and we have no hands on the wheel of life type of thing. And I think this is a really great one for going, stop, find that power, like the scorpion, like the lightning. Let's focus on what we need to do and take control of our lives. And one thing I get people to do with working with Basil, if they are feeling they have no control, is get up in the morning and in a little book, write down one intention for the day. Like today, I'm going to sit on the balcony and have a cup of tea. And then at the end of the night, tick it off. And the next day, if you've achieved that, start adding to that. Okay, I'm going to have my cup of tea, and tonight I'm going to go have a bath. And that. And what you're starting to do is, if you don't set the intention for how you want your day to be, I find life just fills it. You know, have you ever, I'm sure it's happened to you, Liz, where you kind of go, oh, this is going to be a good weekend. I've got nothing planned at all. I can just relax. And what happens? It's like the universe just goes, someone rings you, hey, I'm meant to be moving house and my friends pulled out. Can you come down and help me move house? Or just ringing to remind you of that appointment. And like, if we aren't intentional with our lives in every way, it seems like other people's obligations and the universe just fills it up. So it's about becoming the king or the ruler of your life and sitting on the throne of your life again.
You know why it's called Of the King?
No, fill me in.
So there is a story that says that, should have looked it up. I think around about 800 AD. The true cross was found. That Christ's cross was found in a field surrounded by weeds, and all around it was growing basil.
Wow.
Of the King.
Of the King. Interesting. Yeah, wow.
Mm.
So it's a fascinating essential oil. When we talk about chakras, where would you place it?
Throat chakra.
Right. Okay.
And what I would say, in argument to what you were saying, yes, I agree about productivity. I absolutely agree with that. I also agree with taking control of your life. Absolutely agree with that. What I would say, though, is it is a dangerous oil. And I don't mean that it is a hazardous oil. I mean that if you are in a situation where you are in danger, if you are in like a domestic situation, a domestic violence situation, or a volatile situation, you stay right away from it, because there is no filter in what you say.
Yeah. So I guess we'll come back to chakras in a minute, and we'll go for a loop around the circle. It is that kind of Scorpio zodiac sign.
Absolutely,
where
yes. Scorpio and Mars, that's the ruleships. And you know, if you are going to act like a scorpion, you could end up dead in those situations. It's not a hazardous oil, but it is a dangerous oil. You have to be in the right kind of situation, a safe environment to use it, because you will just be rude and insensitive and nasty if those thoughts are in there. They are going to come out your mouth.
And blunt, I guess. So you've got to be surrounded in people where, you know, often when people have been in positions where they've lost their sense of personal power and then decide to, no, it's time that I stood up for myself, you know, whether that be in, like you said, a domestic violence situation, or just sometimes when we decide, hold on, enough is enough, our friends don't like it or our family doesn't like it because they're used to us being a certain way. So you've got to make sure, I get what you're saying.
In absolute seriousness, it's an oil that should be used in a women's refuge after the event, not during the event. Yeah,
for sure, definitely. So you say throat chakra. I actually bring it up to the third eye chakra of a more that mental. I find it really narrowing of the mind, so I really like it for the third eye chakra as well. So so I think we all need a little basil. You might argue that we all need a lot of basil, except in certain situations. You said you use it a lot. Is it one that you're kind of using for a lot of people, for a lot of things?
I use it for myself a lot.
Yeah. Gotcha.
I always use it for if somebody's got like neurological pain. And actually, if you have a look on my basil book on Amazon, somebody's actually written a review and said how good my advice was for trigeminal neuralgia. That their husband's trigeminal neuralgia was really improved by the recipe that I put in the book. So that was interesting to see. So those kind of neurological things, but particularly like speaking one's truth, dealing with secrets, bringing that stuff to the surface, because sometimes you don't even know you're holding a secret. You know, it's become so knitted in your brain as to why you can't speak it. You don't know why you're holding it. So that's a very interesting one. But I cannot stress enough how much I think somebody must be in a safe space to use it. Yeah,
amazing. Well, basil, and another must-have that we need in our collection as well. Any other little thing? You've obviously written a book on it, so you know. Then, any other golden nuggets that you think everyone needs to know, or should we make them wait for the masterclass and come and find out a bit more about basil then?
Yeah, no, there's loads of stories. Really, there's so many stories in the Basil book. So, but the other thing that's really interesting that comes up a lot in the themes of the myths is obsession, like dark stalking obsession, and that's interesting to look at as well. But yeah, read the book, come and talk at the masterclass, definitely.
There we go.
Yeah, but also next week we'll talk about Holy Basil. I really suggest that obviously there's 2 weeks between them. There's a week between them being released, but watch them together because I really want people to understand how different they are, so that people don't go Basil, because they're really incredibly different. It's like nature went, we need this kind of medicine and we need this kind of medicine, and people are just like now being lazy, but they are so different.
Yeah. In the basil world, I should ask as well, the only two that I've really worked with are Sweet Basil and Holy Basil. Are there any others that pop up from time to time?
There's lots of different basil herbs like Ocimum gratissimum and tenuiflorum sometimes have and Thai basil sometimes have oils, but tends to be from artisan distillers. That you don't really see Tulsi on sale very often, but it is a really important oil.
I must admit, I just remembered another basil I've had. It was called or labeled as African wild basil, but its Latin name was Americum, the second half of it, kind of thing. And that was an amazing basil oil, like really profound in its spiritual aspect. So I smelt it. It started speaking straight away, and I haven't got any in my collection, but that was amazing too.
Yeah, so I said Tulsi then, as if people should know. So Holy Basil is Tulsi. If people don't know, like why did you say a different one? So yeah, Ocimum Sanctum is Tulsi. So that's what we'll talk about next week.
Sweet. So we will see you next week for another episode of Fellowship in Essential Oils. While you're waiting for that, make sure you click on the link down below and book in for our February masterclass when we're going to be looking at all things romance, love, soulmates, sex, everything like that.
And also, and as I said, we're talking about those oils, stalking, obsession, all of that dark shadow as well with Sweet Basil.
It'll be a fun session, so make sure you make that masterclass. We'll see you next week. Thanks for hanging out with us. Take care.
Bye.